My whole life, I've been telling myself that I'm lazy and I've been beating myself up for it. And I finally only now realize that I got it wrong. I am not lazy. Lazy people like being lazy. I hate that I act lazy sometimes or my behavior is lazy sometimes. But I hate myself for this. I hate the fact that no matter how early I wake up, in order to try and get my kid to school on time, we are always a minute or two late and sometimes even 15 minutes late. And I really, really beat myself up for it. I'm ashamed about it. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm waking up at 5:30 in the morning sometimes just so I get all my own stuff and preparation and day planning out of the way and wake my kids up on time, or once they're up, get them ready, take them through the morning routine on time and out the door. And you know what? This is what's so frustrating. Even when we're out the door on time or even early, somehow on the little walk, on the 10-minute walk to school, it turns into 15 minutes or 16 or 17. And sometimes on the way to school, we have a meltdown and I have to deal with that. I have to manage that. Still continue to urge my son to get to school while at the same time keeping his mood balanced so that I don't deliver this ticking time bomb to the teacher. Guys, I absolutely hate that I'm late all the time. And this is not the only place where I'm late. I'm constantly late to whenever I have to drop my kids off to their babysitter, which is my in-laws, but I'm late for that. I'm often late to this parents group that I go to with my daughter. Sometimes I'm late when I'm meeting a friend, even if it's by 5 minutes. I'm always late and I just can't figure out why. So I was researching this recently and I found this incredible video by the channel Am I Neurodivergent, which I'm going to link to right here. And in this channel, the main thing that the person talks about is that if you were lazy, then you would actually enjoy being lazy. The fact that you hate being lazy means that there's something else at work here that's keeping you stuck in this lazy behavior. So for me, the one repetitive thing that has gotten me in trouble my whole life is being late. So in middle school, for example, I left my summer homework. I went to middle school in India, so we got tons of homework over the summer. I was a bright student and I liked my status of being a bright student, so I took pride in delivering good work, but I always left my work until literally the last 2 days before school restarted. So this is 2 months worth of work I had to cram in the last 2 days. And I would often cry. Literally, I have a memory of burrowing my head in my mom's lap and just crying, absolutely soaking her clothes, saying, "Oh, I can't believe it. I left it until too long. What am I gonna do? How could I be so stupid?" And I was probably 11 or 12 at the time. So I've been really struggling with this lateness forever. And now not only has it affected me, my life, in whatever ways counted and uncounted, now it's affecting my kids' life. Okay, so I'm autistic. The teachers half know that. I mean, they're very educated in this topic because of personal reasons in their lives. So I'm really blessed that I have teachers who are aware of neurodiversity. So I've come out to them, I've told them that, look, I'm also autistic and obviously my kid is autistic. Now, hopefully because of their awareness, they have a little bit of understanding and a little bit of grace towards me that, okay, so not only is the kid autistic, which causes lateness in the morning, the mom is also autistic. So I'm dealing with a lot of executive functioning problems here and a lot of managing a neurodivergent kid in the morning who doesn't want to get out of his warm, cozy bed, who doesn't want to get dressed by himself, who doesn't want to brush his teeth. He'd rather run away and play or be funny, which is absolutely not funny to me because I'm trying to get out the door on time. So hopefully they have this sense of compassion and understanding towards me. But that doesn't change the fact that him being late to school sets him up for failure. So here's where the whole purpose of this channel comes in. This channel exists so that we as neurodivergent parents see how our neurodiversity, our challenges, our traits are having an impact on our children's lives and their development. So the fact that for whatever reason, I'm blocked from being on time, and I have been for as long as I can remember, and now it's affecting my son. So what does that mean? He is one of the last kids to arrive in the changing room. And he's the last kid to walk into the classroom after taking his sweet time, getting undressed. It's winter right now, so there's 100 layers that he has to take off, and then walking into the classroom. And you can imagine what that's like. You walk in late and all eyes are on you. And that must be terrifying for him. It's just not comfortable. Other moms who've had kids run away from kindergarten, actually trying to run back home, have told me the one thing that helped the most was being early to school, being one of the first kids to arrive, because then they are the ones, they have time to ground themselves, they have time to claim their space, and they're the ones now looking at the new kid walking in through the door or their friend walking through the door, rather than them receiving all that attention, which can be very uncomfortable for an autistic kid. So now my neurodiversity is affecting my kid, and it's augmenting his neurodiversity. It's augmenting his autism. It is making his autism, I'm setting him up for failure basically by constantly being late to school. And the shame from this, the shame, the all-consuming shame that just makes me want to disappear and just disappear from his life, because I'm blaming myself now. I'm because of me, he is having a hard time in school or with the teachers, or just his arrival to school is harder now just because I can't get my act together. So the one thing that the channel maker from Am I Neurodivergent mentions at the 13th minute mark really shook me. It shook me to the point where I was actually crying, and I commented on his video and he wrote me back, which I'm so grateful for, is this feeling of shame that I was putting on myself. What he says is you need to first recognize and acknowledge that there is a problem. And the problem is not with you, it's a problem with how your brain functions. And this is just how your brain is. It is different from how other brains work. And this is not something to be ashamed of. Until you see this as a problem, until you really acknowledge that this is a problem, you won't have any incentive to find a solution to this problem. So what is at work here that is making me constantly late in the morning? I think this is two particular things. The first is autistic inertia. Autistic inertia is just like the inertia in physics, which says an object is going to stay in motion unless an external force comes and changes it from motion to non-motion, and the other way around. A stationary object will stay stationary unless an external force moves it into motion. Once the thing is in motion, it's going to stay in motion. And this is like that with autistic inertia. We have a hard time stopping our flow. And it is really, really hard, which I'm realizing finally, to go from non-moving to moving. I also see this heavily in my son. In the morning when he wakes up, he's happy to stay in bed for an extra 10 or even 15 minutes. Even though the lights are off, even though he knows I'm awake, I'm moving around and he can hear me, he can see the light in the hallway on, he's happy to stay in bed because it's so hard for him to get out of the state he's currently in, because the external force, which needs to move him from stationary to in motion, which is me, has not come in yet and actually moved him. With me, however, I'm an adult and I'm supposed to be able to do this for myself, but I just can't. Another thing that is holding me back from being on time, I think, is PDA, pathological demand avoidance. Some little rebel without a cause in my brain and my heart is still fighting against the system, is still like, oh, you need me to be on time, screw you teachers, I don't care about anybody's rules. I'm afraid that PDA is playing a part here, and I'm rebelling against the system, this whole school system, by not taking seriously the starting time for the school day, even for the kindergarten for my son. So how do we work with it? We've realized that we are chronically late. We chronically procrastinate, and there's seems to be nothing. This seems to be like a repetitive, kind of like a whirlpool that we're stuck in and we can't get out. What are some ways that could possibly get us into motion? There are so many tips out there of getting out of autistic inertia, habits, and so on, but I'm only going to share the 4 things that has helped me personally. So, disclaimer here, I'm not a psychologist. I am simply a mom who has autism and ADHD, and who lives with a husband with ADHD, and who has 2 kids who are also neurodivergent. One of them is exactly like me, autism and ADHD, so you can imagine it's like a cocktail of emotions and passion in our household. Okay, so like emotions and passions is just code word for meltdowns and shutdowns. But seriously though, we do have a lot of feelings in our house. We have a lot of love because we're taking the opportunities. Every time feelings bubble up into like a volcano of emotions and we all are erupting all over the place, we somehow come back down and find ourselves in each other again. We find each other again, and we really take the time to connect. We say sorry a lot in our family, in our house, because we realize, well, by we, maybe I'm just talking about me here, whenever I realize that I have made a mistake or I have done something because I was under the influence of my own adverse childhood experiences, or my own small t traumas, or my own autism, or my own ADHD, whatever, I try to explain that to my kids, specifically my son, because it's usually with him that things come up. So I go and I explain to him that, oh, look, the thing that happened yesterday, why I was so upset, it wasn't actually because you were screaming in the swimming pool. It was because I was terrified that all the other moms would stare at me when you were screaming in the swimming pool. It's not because you screamed. You're a child, you're allowed to scream. Especially if you hurt yourself, of course you're supposed to scream. And that's okay. I was upset because actually I was really scared that everybody was suddenly looking at me now. That was a total tangent, but here are the 4 things that actually helped me sort of get over or work with this chronic procrastination, chronic being late all the time. First tip is to make lists. So just grab your phone and open up the Notes app on Apple. The Notes app is amazing. I love the little bullets that you can kind of check off, and just make a list. Now the problem here is though, apparently autistic brains cannot form habits. And this is like a topic that's kind of super trendy on YouTube right now and all social, whatever. I don't have any other social except for YouTube because it breaks my brain. But it's super hot right now, the whole topic that autistic brains can't form habits. And I was thinking about it, and it's true. I actually don't have a morning habit. I don't have hardly any habits. And I've never developed habits. So when I was younger, as a teenager, I smoked cigarettes, but I never really got addicted to cigarettes. I never formed a habit of smoking all the time. Also for drinking or whatever. Yeah, in your 20s, you party a lot and you drink significantly, but I never got addicted. I never really ever formed any habits. And now, well, I just gave you like destructive examples, but I've also haven't really formed positive habits. More like the one thing that has helped me accomplish and complete things is considering it as a project. So this channel, for example, this is a year-long project where, of course, I'm going to talk about neurodiversity and parenting, but I'm also going to talk about unmasking, and I'm going to try and make a conscious effort to unmask on camera so I can like watch my progress. This is a whole other topic we'll talk about another time. But so like lists, yes, they work. And this is the thing. So for me, every single morning I have to open my thing and I have to make a list. I'll just show you guys. So like every single day I have to put on my list, wake up, shower, put on your makeup, get dressed. I actually have to put these as bullet points because it's not automatic. If it's not written down, if it's not consciously planned, I somehow just won't do it, or I'll leave it until the last minute. So my kids are waking up, it's time to give them breakfast, and I'm still in my pajamas, or I haven't had a shower because it hasn't been on my list. So this is kind of crazy. Like, I don't think this is normal for neurotypical people. I don't think people don't have to put this level of commitment and planning into just getting their morning routine down. Like simple things like having a shower, putting on your makeup. You know, I have to put it on my list. I have to put the exact time when I'm going to wake up my kids, because if I don't, I'll just push it back and push it back and push it back until like, 15, 20 minutes later. And we're just, when you start late, of course, everything is just going to get delayed. Anyway, so lists are kind of your way around the fact that your brain can't make habits, or at least it is for me. Again, I'm going to mention, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist or consultant in neurodiversity. I am a mom with autism and ADHD, and this is simply what works and doesn't work for me. So take from it what you want and just leave the rest with me. The next thing is body doubling. So this really, really works. I kind of doubted it at first, but I gave it a try when it comes to like working on computer projects or, other stuff. I invited a friend over, she brought her computer, and we just sat next to each other at the dining table and we got stuff done. How this helps me in the morning to be on time is when my husband is also waking up early because of work or whatever, I sometimes push myself to get up just a few minutes before him so I can kind of beat him. Like, I want to be first, I don't know where this competitive kind of push comes from, but often I do that and that actually helps. The third tip is dangle the carrot. Piggyback onto something you totally love. So for me, I love to journal. I think my journal gets more appearances on my channel than anyone or anything else because I absolutely love it. So often I will wake up early just so I have a few extra minutes to write. Now, here is the problem. The problem here is because I also have ADHD, I very quickly go into hyper focus when I'm doing something I love, and that lights up my brain and like gets the dopamine flowing. So, if you know anything about ADHD and hyperfocus, you also know that we absolutely hate being pulled out of this hyperfocus, and being yanked out of our hyperfocus often can cause us to go into a meltdown or a rage. So you can imagine it's like 6:30 in the morning and I'm writing away, I'm super happy, and then I hear my kids wake up and I know I'm going to have to stop now, but I wasn't ready to stop. So what happens in that moment is this resentment builds up towards the kids because they, stopped your flow. The only thing that you can do here is lower your expectations. I talked about this in another video about how I got into this ADHD rage against my kids, or triggered by my kids, and I'll link to that here. Be realistic here. You're a neurodivergent mom or dad with neurodivergent kids, and their attention span or their needs are high. Their attention span is low and their needs are high. So the time windows you're going to get to kind of hide away and do your own thing is going to be small. So set your expectations low. When I started to do this, instead of like imagining I'm going to have half an hour to write, I was just grateful if I even had 2 minutes literally to write like 1 or 2 lines. I would just consider that a win and then go into my job of, momming. The fourth and final thing that I really took on from the channel Am I Neurodivergent is be okay with being okay. You don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to be good. You just have to be okay. And again, I'm getting emotional here because the pressure that we put ourselves under to be perfect or to be good, it's like, why are we doing this to ourselves? It's harsh and it's a bit mean. It's not understanding. It's like, imagine if your kid was trying to be, the best that he or she could be, but, they're just a kid. So they're doing okay. They're doing okay at putting on their shoes by themselves or at painting something. And are you going to like come down hard on them, being like, oh, that's not perfect. It's not a perfect circle. Your circle looks like a squiggle. No, you're going to say that's okay. I see that you made an effort here. I see how nice you hold the pencil. And I see you tried to, you drew a nice circle, whatever. Why are we so hard on ourselves when we don't get it right? Like, who makes up the rules anyway? What is right? I also had to get specific help, parenting help, autistic parenting help from a professional who lives in my town. I'm so blessed that there's an actual autistic parent kind of counselor, consultant who does home visits and offers advice and kind of guides you through the process of understanding your autistic child and their specific needs. And she's also available to speak on your behalf to the school or to the doctor or to a psychologist or whatever, in order to help you, in order to fight and claim for special accommodations for your neurodivergence, well, your child's neurodivergence. And what comes hand in hand with that is your own neurodivergence. So she came over and, I was crying and blah, blah, I'm horrible. I'm like scarring my kids for life because I can't control my own neurodivergent traits. She's like, look, some days you're just going to be late to school. Well, she asked me what causes the most stress in your day. I'm like, consistently, it is the mornings. It's the mornings when we're rushing to get out and I'm getting angry at him, my son, because he's not fast enough or whatever. And she said, she gave me the permission, basically. She said, some days you're just going to be late and the school is just going to have to deal with it. Look, as a autistic, ADHD, highly sensitive person, mom, parent, you are anyway so in tune with what your kid and what your teacher, even what the whole class might need, that you're accommodating for them in other ways. You might be volunteering, you might be offering help, or I don't know, somehow. So you're accommodating the school, you're accommodating the teachers. So why not also claim some accommodation for yourself and the specific needs that you have as an autistic / ADHD family. And the funny thing that happened, the moment I gave myself permission to be late a few days if I have to, I stopped being late. So I've been consistently on time for a couple of days now, and this is huge. And not only on time, like early. And what I was mentioning earlier, when I'm early, then my son just has a better start in the school, in the class, and I know that he's not going to have any trouble that morning, or at least less trouble with the start of the day. I also talk about this in detail about managing your kid's meltdown. So often I would trigger my son to go into a meltdown because of this, like, hurry up, hurry up. So I talk about that in this video. Please watch it. The moment I decided in my heart we're going to be late today and that's okay, I could just relax and let go and continue the morning routine at my son's pace. And he really, really needed it that day, the day that I'm talking about on this video. And because of that, because of this like extra, I don't know, accommodation that I made for him or extra grace that I offered to him, he was happy. Like he went to school happy, and there was no fight on the way. There was no meltdown on the street, and there was probably, hopefully, no confrontation with the teacher, which can also happen because of his like PDA tendencies. If you're still watching, I want to hear from you. Do you also have chronic procrastination or this lateness that you're always late, and no matter what you do, no matter how badly you want it, you can't be on time? Am I the only one here? I want to know. And if there's anything that you found that could be the reason, like the why behind why you're doing that, I also want to know that.